Hi friends, so we all know that we are very close to our board exams and you must be preparing really hard. And as usual, you can always rely on Toppscholars for helping your preparations. So today we will be trying to solve together some sample questions from the previous years. And so we are here with the discussion on Science and Technology second Maharashtra Board 10 Sample Paper 2024. So let's get started. Small questions or the multiple choice question, and then eventually we'll move on to the bigger or difficult question and we will try to answer them all together. So the first is fill in the blanks with correct alternatives. The first question, the process of glycolysis occurs in dash. The options are A. Cytoplasm, B. Golgi apparatus, C. Mitochondria, or D. Entire cell. Where do you think? Try to answer it in your mind. And in the meantime, let's look at the solution. So the solution, the process of glycolysis occurs in cytoplasm. I hope you guessed it correctly. Why is this so? Glycolysis is a universal pathway occurring in catabolism of glucose, wherein it is broken down into two molecules of pyruvate. All the enzymes necessary for glycolysis are found in cytoplasm, and so obviously the process of glycolysis has to take place in cytoplasm. Now, next question. The occurrence of diversity among the organisms of same species is dash diversity. Options are A. Species, B. Genetic, C. Ecosystem, or D. Hierarchical. What is it? It is the genetic diversity. So if you see that within a species, there are a lot of differences. Even in human species, you see people are of different color, different height, different features, etc. So what is it because of? It is because of genetic diversity. The occurrence of diversity among organisms of same species is genetic diversity. A decrease in genetic diversity may cause species extinction. Okay, so genetic diversity is that important. Now, next is in chordates, a dash nerve cord is present on dash side of the body. Your options are hollow, ventral, B. Spiral, dorsal, C. Hollow, dorsal, and D. Spiral, ventral. Now, let's look at the solution. So, in chordates, a hollow nerve cord is present on the dorsal side of the body. If you can see the dorsal side of the body, there is a hollow nerve cord. So, the correct answer is hollow and dorsal, that is C. Now, next is stem cells cannot be obtained from dash. Is it A. Red bone marrow, B. Adipose connective tissue, C. Cord blood, D. Skin tissues? Where do you think we can't get stem cells from? Is it red bone marrow? Of course not. We get the stem cells from red bone marrow. Adipose connective tissue? Yes, obviously. Cord blood? So, if you remember that during the time of birth, cord blood is connected to store the stem cells. So, that leaves us with skin tissues. So, can we collect stem cells from skin tissues? No. So, the correct answer is skin tissues. So, let's look at the solution and see if we are correct. Stem cells can be obtained from red bone marrow, adipose connective tissue and blood. Besides, stem cells can be obtained from cord blood immediately after birth. So, that is why skin tissue is the correct answer. Now, let's move on to the next question. Disaster dash is achieving or time to time improving the ability to face disaster. So, we all know what disasters are. It can be earthquake, flood, or any storm situation, heavy rainfall, etc., etc., fire. All these things are disaster, which are unexpected circumstances, which are not in our control, which are mostly caused by nature and sometimes man-made activities. So, during these disasters, there are certain measures that are taken. Now, it needs planning, analysis, and management as well. So, with the help of what? Disaster planning, disaster analysis, disaster mitigation, or disaster management is how we are able to improve the ability to face disasters from time to time. The correct answer would be disaster management. So, disaster management is achieving or time to time improving the ability to face disasters through scientific and careful observation and analysis of data. So, where do we collect data from? From the past events, and then we see how we mitigated those disasters. We take into considerations all the possibilities by which it can be improved further, and we are much better prepared to face these disasters in future. Solve the following questions. Now we move on to another type of questions. Here, find the odd one out. Tobacco, drugs, cigarette, competition. Which one is the odd one? I hope you will be able to even guess it, that it is competition. So, competition, why is it odd one? It affects mental health and causes mental stress, while rest are related to addiction. So, we have heard of tobacco addiction, drug addiction, cigarette addiction, but there is no such competition addiction, right? So, competition, although it is very stressful, it causes a lot of mental distress, but it is not causing the addiction. Now, next is state true or false. We get 9 kilocalories of energy per gram of protein and 4 kilocalories of energy per gram of lipid. Which is the most important source of energy here? So, let's look at the solution. It is obviously false. Proteins do not provide more energy than that of lipids. So, first energy source is carbohydrate. After that, the most energy is provided by lipid, and after that, it goes to protein, right? So, it is definitely false. We get 9 kilocalorie of energy per gram of lipids and 4 kilocalorie of energy per gram of proteins. Now, let's move on to the next question. Complete the correlation. Okay, so we have to now look at the correlation. Biotic factors, plant, animal, microorganism. Abiotic factors would be, so let's look at the solutions. Biotic factors, plants, animals and microorganisms. Abiotic factors would be air, water, soil, temperature, sunlight, minerals and other non-living physical components of the environment. So, here in correlation we have to see that we are talking about the organisms which are in nature, and the abiotic factors are all the non-living things in our environment, that would be air, water, soil, temperature, sunlight, minerals and other non-living items in the and other non-living physical components of the environment. The study of interactions between these biotic and abiotic factors within an environment is known as ecology. So, the study of the interaction between the biotic and abiotic factors in an environment is known as the ecology. The fundamental unit for studying ecology is the ecosystem, right? Now, who is credited with inventing electromagnetic induction, the principle behind most electric power plants? So, who is that great scientist who invented electromagnetic induction? So, Michael Faraday was a British scientist who made significant contribution to the field of electromagnetism and electrochemistry. So, he was the first person who observed and found out the correlation between the electromagnetism and electrochemistry, and because of that, his contribution, we are now able to utilize it in so many different processes. He is known for discovering electromagnetic induction, that is the temporary magnetic field generated by passing electric current, a fundamental principle in physics. So, using this fundamental principle, a lot of devices has been invented, and therefore, Michael Faraday's work has been very significant in this field. Now, identify the picture and name it. What do you identify from this picture? Let's see. The image is of a child undergoing counseling, right? So we have known about different mental health situation which is upcoming in kids of different ages due to competitions and stress and all other different factors going on in our environment these days. So because of that, a child is undergoing counseling where a doctor talks and tries to understand the mental health of a person and tries to counsel them to help them better. Now, give the following questions. Give scientific reason. Okay, so now we are going to give scientific reason. From 1 mark question, we have moved to now 2 marks question. So, give scientific reasons. Our muscle cells perform anaerobic respiration during exercise. So, we are going to give a scientific reason for if our muscle cells perform anaerobic respiration or not during exercising, right? So while we are exercising, we are using our muscles, right? And continuously there is certain process going inside our muscles. So is it anaerobic respiration that goes on? Let's see. Our muscle cell performs anaerobic respiration during exercise due to oxygen depletion in the surrounding. So while in the surrounding, when we are performing exercises, at that time we are breathing very heavily, and in the surrounding oxygen is depleting because we are taking up a lot more oxygen. Similarly, our muscle cells also perform anaerobic respiration while performing the exercise. When we engage in strenuous physical activity, our muscle requires a high amount of energy to function efficiently, right? So when we are exercising, we are jogging, we are running, or we are skipping ropes, etc. At that time, our body, our muscles are performing very strenuous activity. At that time, it requires a lot more energy than when we are sitting or lying down, right? So during that time, to generate that energy, our muscles also require oxygen, and due to the depleting oxygen in the surrounding, the muscles have to perform anaerobic respiration. So due to this, less energy is produced in our bodies and lactic acid is accumulated, due to which we feel tired. And because of this accumulation of lactic acid only, we feel our muscles are getting sore and it starts to pain. Now next is, give scientific reason. Again, some animals like all cnidarians develop only 2 germ layers. So we have to give scientific reason for this statement. So let's see the solution to it. Cnidarians such as jellyfish, so jellyfish belong to the phylum cnidarians, develop only 2 germ layers, the endoderm and ectoderm, and that is the reason why they fall under cnidarians, because they are simple diploblastic animals. These germ layers are formed during the embryonic development, and unlike more complex animals like triploblastic animals, they lack a mesoderm. So they don't have the mesoderm which differentiates ectoderm and the endoderm. They just have 2 germ layers. So that is the reason why they form the group cnidarians. Now next question, give reasons. Electricity generation using fossil fuels and nuclear fuels is not considered environmental friendly. Why is that so? Why is it not environmental friendly? So there are lots and lots of development in nuclear fuels which are providing us with lots of energy. So that is the reason we are moving towards utilizing nuclear fuels. But now it says that it is not environmental friendly. Is that true? Yes, it is. Why is that so? So electricity generation based on fossil fuels like coal and natural gas and nuclear fuels like uranium and plutonium are not environmental friendly. Burning of fossil fuels like coal and natural gas leads to emission of certain gases and soot particles. This results in air pollution. right? So whenever we are burning any fossil fuel like coal or natural gas, it always leads to generation of certain gases which remains or which hinders the quality of air and causes air pollution. So that is the reason why it is not environmental friendly. Similarly, with the nuclear fuels like uranium and plutonium, it releases nuclear particles in the air, and it also causes ionization of air, which is in long term is very harmful for the environment. Reserves of fossil fuels are limited, right? So fossil fuels are developed after millions and millions of years by the degradation of the dead remains of plants and animals, and it takes million years to form. So they are obviously limited in quantity, and if we continue to use it, it will soon be over and there will be a lot of scarcity of them. If electrical energy is generated using these fuels, it can lead to environmental degradation in multiple ways, such as air pollution, carbon monoxide, and global warming, etc. Right? So that is the reason why using this kind of fuel is not recommended. We must be using renewable sources of energy like hydroelectricity or solar electricity or wind energy, etc. Now, answer the following question. Complete the following diagram. It carries 2 marks and it looks like a very simple question. You just have to find out what will come in these 2 boxes based on what is already given. So we know paleontologic evidences and morphological evidences are evidence of evolution. So we will have to fill in these 2 boxes with what other types of evidences are used for evidence of evolution. So let's look at the solution. So we have 4 types of evidences gathered by scientists to support the concept of evolution. So first is fossil or paleontological, morphological, and embryological and anatomical. So those 2 empty boxes will be filled by these 2 types of evidences. One is embryological evidences and second is anatomical evidences. So that's a very easy 2 marks question. Now let's move on to the next question. How can inculcating values contribute to making future generations more aware and responsible for environmental conservation and protection? Do you even think that the future generation or the current generation should be educated and given more awareness about the environment and how we can conserve the environment? Yes, we do. So, the solution is inculcating the values in children from a young age can have a lasting impact on their environmental consciousness. So from the very young age, we start inculcating habits or values that will make them more aware and more conscious about the environment, and that is going to help them become better people who are much more careful about saving or conserving their environment. It helps build a strong foundation of awareness and responsibility, making them more likely to engage in environmental conservation efforts as they grow older. So they will understand the value of conservation of the environmental factors and they will take responsibility in future to save the environment in the best possible ways. Education and instilling these values in childhood are crucial for a sustainable, environmentally conscious future, right? So from the childhood itself, they should be educated and made more aware to build the foundation of our future generation. Next question, distinguish between budding and fragmentation. So these 2 are the process of reproduction, right? Now these 2 reproduction method, how are they different from each other? Let's see. So we will see the difference between budding and fragmentation one by one. First, in budding typically occurs in unicellular organism, right? So the first difference is budding appears or occurs in unicellular organisms like yeast, which are single-celled, right? So budding only happens in single-celled organism, whereas Fragmentation usually occur in multicellular organisms such as Spirogyra and sponges like Cycon, which have multiple cells and body parts. Now, let's look at the second difference. In budding, a small bud forms on the parent cell's surface. So, if you remember how yeast cell multiplies, the first thing that happens is a small bud is formed on the surface of the parent itself. So, a small bud forms, right? And one of the two daughter nuclei enters this bud. After sufficient growth of this budding, the bud separates from the parent cell and becomes an independent daughter cell, right? So, it starts from the surface of the parent. After growth, it separates out of the parent cell and forms a new daughter cell. What happens in fragmentation? In fragmentation, the body of parent organism breaks into multiple fragments. So, the parent organism, it breaks into multiple organisms or multiple fragments, and each fragment grows into independent new organism, right? So, instead of growing a different entity from the surface of the organism, they break into different fragments and each fragment become a new organism. Now, what is the third difference? The third difference, budding results in the formation of new individual from the parent cell. The parent cell produces a daughter cell through this process. Now, in fragmentation, what happened? Fragmentation results in the formation of multiple new individuals from a single parent organism, right? So, one organism breaks down into multiple new organisms. Here what happens? The parent cell gives rise to a small daughter cell. So, this is the third difference. Each fragment becomes a new individual and the parent organism gives rise to several offspring, right? Next question. What are the byproducts produced when pyruvic acid is converted into acetyl coenzyme A? So, now we know that pyruvic acid is produced at the end of glycolysis, then it is converted into acetyl CoA and enters into Krebs cycle. So, what is generated? What are the byproducts generated during the conversion of pyruvic acid into acetyl CoA? So, the byproducts produced when pyruvic acid is converted into acetyl coenzyme A are two molecules of NADH2, right, and two molecules of CO2, right. So, we have two NADH2 plus 2 CO2. These are the two byproducts produced when there is the conversion of pyruvic acid into acetyl CoA and enters the Krebs cycle. Then, solve the following question. State the meaning of the following symbols. You must have seen these symbols multiple times. What does these mean? So, the first symbol means recycling. It's recycling or items that can be recycled. So, certain dustbins have these kind of symbols. So, you can throw the items which are meant for recycling or recyclable items are thrown in those dustbins. The second one, the second symbol means water conservation, which is very clear from the symbol itself, right? So, it means water conservation. The third one, what does this mean? The third symbol means solar power generation. These are all representing solar panels, right, through which the sun's energy is captured and it is converted into energy, electrical energy, right. Now, next question, explain the concept of protoplasmic grade organization in unicellular animals. Provide examples and discuss the significance of this level of organization in their biological function. So, what does this protoplasmic grade sound like? Protoplasm is in unicellular organisms, right? So, these are the organisms which do not have a well developed cellular structure. So, we need to explain the concept of protoplasmic grade organization in unicellular animals. So let's see the solution. The protoplasmic grid organization is a level of body organization observed in unicellular animals. In this type of organization, the entire body of organism is made up of single cell, unicellular. That means it is made up of single cell, and this cell is responsible for performing all the essential life functions. So, all the essential life function, that is respiration or excretion, digestion, metabolism, everything, all the processes are done within one single cell itself. One of the key example of organism with protoplasmic grid organization is paramecium. So this paramecium is an example of a unicellular organism with protoplasmic grid organization, level of body organization, and you can see that all the body functions are conducted within that single cell only. Now, how do microbial enzymes differ from chemical catalysts in chemical industry, and what advantages do they offer? So, in many of the chemical processes, many fermentation reactions, many bioreactors, people have now started to use microbial enzymes instead of chemical catalysts due to the biotechnological advancements. So, what is the advantage that it provides, because of which these microbial enzymes are taking over chemical catalysts? Let's see. So, microbial enzymes differ from chemical catalysts as they are biological molecules produced by microorganisms. So, what advantage? They operate under milder condition such as low temperature, pH and pressure. Right? So, since microorganisms, they also require a milder condition to survive in. So, they are synthesizing these enzymes for their life processes in those milder condition only. Their cells are used to produce enzymes which can function in milder conditions like low temperature, pH and pressure. Whereas the chemical catalyst needed very high temperature, specifically high pH and high pressure condition to achieve the desired result. So, this difference results in energy saving. So, less energy needs to be provided to provide a higher temperature, or different chemicals which are buffers which are used to maintain the pH can be minimized, and also the energy used to create very high pressure situation can also be avoided. So, it reduces the need for higher energy and the need for erosion proof instruments. So, we all know that chemicals have certain corrosive reaction on the bioreactors that is used for the chemical processes. Additionally, microbial enzymes are highly specific and minimize byproduct formation. So, wastage is also minimized. Now, next question. Name 3 antibiotics obtained from bacteria and fungi and provide their application in combating bacterial infections. Okay, so instead of 3, we are going to provide you a lot many options you can choose from. Penicillin, cephalosporins, erythromycin, gentamicin and streptomycins are antibiotics obtained from bacteria and fungi. They are used to treat various bacterial infections. So, all the antibiotics written by your doctors are actually produced by different bacteria and fungi. How can we distinguish between gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria in the context of antibiotic susceptibility? So, what do they have that is making them more antibiotic susceptible or less antibiotic susceptible? Gram-positive bacteria have a single thick layer of peptidoglycan in their cell walls and are generally more susceptible to antibiotics targeting cell walls, right? So, it is about targeting the antibiotics which target the cell walls and degrades them. So, for those antibiotics, it is obviously like, if the target is present, only then those antibiotics will act on it. Since gram-positive bacteria have a thick layer of peptidoglycan in their cell wall, that is the reason they become more susceptible to those antibiotics which target the cell wall. Whereas gram-negative bacteria, they have only additional outer membrane, making them less susceptible to those antibiotics. So, they don't have such thick cell wall, because of which they become less susceptible to antibiotics which target the cell wall. How are stem cells used in regenerative therapy, and can you provide examples of specific medical condition where cell therapy is applied? Okay, so what is this cell therapy? Again, because of the advancement in medical technologies, there are certain stem cells which can be saved and stored, and it can be later used for protecting us or for damage control of the other cells which are all degenerated. So let's see the solution to it. Stem cells are used in regenerative therapy to replace dead or damaged cells in conditions like diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and myocardial infarction. For instance, in diabetes, stem cells can be used to regenerate insulin producing beta cells. So people with diabetes have the insulin producing beta cell degenerated. So using the stem cells, we can induce regrowth of such insulin producing beta cells, and the condition of diabetes can be managed. Now, next question. What are the factors that need to be considered when matching donors and recipient for organ transplantation, and which organs can only be donated after a person's death, leading to the concept of posthumous donation? So, this is a 1-mark question and it is a very interesting question. Let's answer it. Factors such as blood group, diseases, disorders, and age of the donor and recipient must be considered when matching for organ transplantation. So, many instances, because of the organ failure, some people require the donation from a different person to be given to the person for its survival. Otherwise, because of organ failure, the person may die. So, to save him from those organ failures, we have to ensure that the donor's blood group matches. If there are any existing condition in the donors, any existing disease, that needs to be checked. Already the donor is diseased, then obviously the diseased organ cannot be transplanted. Disorders and age of the donor needs to be considered while matching for organ donor and recipient. Organs like the liver, heart and eyes can only be donated after a person's death, giving rise to the concept of posthumous donation, right? So, only certain other organs like blood, kidney can be donated when the person is alive, when the donor is alive. Other than that, because of the concept of posthumous donation, liver, heart and eyes can only be donated after the death of the donor. How does biotechnology contribute to increasing agriculture productivity even when there are limitations in the available cropland area? So, due to the industrial development, lots of land is getting converted into industrial areas, and also more and more housing societies are getting created, cities are expanding, because of which agricultural land is getting diminished. So, with less amount of land, how biotechnology has helped us to increase the yield of crop. Biotechnology contributes to increasing agriculture productivity by developing high yield crops. So, from one crop gives the biotechnology helps that crop to generate a lot of output. So, if there is a grain, if there is a millet plant, so those crop will be high yielding because of the contribution of biotechnological tools. So, variety, optimizing crop growth and improving crop resistance to environmental stressors, allowing for greater yields from the same land area. So, any conditions which can damage the existing crops is minimized by introducing biotechnological tools and making the crops more resistant to diseases or environmental stressors. So, the crops which are already existing can survive and give better yield. So, this is how the biotechnology has contributed in increasing the agriculture productivity. Now, next question. What is the nature of disaster and are there predictable signs? Can we actually predict that if any disaster is about to take place? And what are the signs if we are able to predict it? So, disasters come in various forms. We know that, each with its unique characteristics. For instance, floods result from excessive rainfall, or the overflow of water bodies, while earthquakes are caused by the shifting of tectonic plates beneath the earth's surface. So now that we know the causes of it, so maybe we are able to also predict these disasters from the cause of it. So let's see. Identifying specific signs or precursors for all disasters is challenging. However, some disasters may exhibit warning signs, such as unusual weather patterns before a storm or increased seismic activities before an earthquake. So these are certain signs which actually tells you that a disaster is about to happen. So that if you can read into these kind of signs from the past data, then you will be better prepared to face these disasters and save lives and properties. Monitoring these signs can help in disaster preparedness and early warning systems. Despite these challenges, understanding the nature of disasters and any observable precursors is crucial to disaster management. So that is why disaster management is a crucial subject in itself, because it requires a lot of observation and analysis of data, so that these precursors can be identified at a very early stage, so that steps can be taken to manage them. Explain why evolution is organizational. Why is it so? So let's explain that. This carries 3 marks and it's therefore very important. So let's see. Changes in the structural and functional organization of living organism occurs as a result of evolution through genetic modification. How do genetic modification take place? Through mutation. There can be random mutation, there can be systematic mutations, there can be addition, deletions of nucleotides, and this is how genetic modifications take place over a long period of time. And there are many factors that affect these mutations. So, for example, genetic mutations can lead to new traits and adaptations that improve an organism's ability to survive and reproduce. Since the environment is changing, that is the reason why even an organism has to keep changing to survive in that changing atmosphere, right? So, to combat or to better survive and to adapt in such changes, they require certain traits, new traits, and that is happening due to certain types of mutation, and these mutations accumulate over time and gives rise to a completely different modification of functional and structural characteristics. Over time, these changes accumulate, leading to shifts in the structural and functional characteristics of species. So let's see the next question. State the process given below. What this process looks like. So here we can see there are garbage, there is soil cover, and there is methane gas which is released. So well to monitor groundwater level. So this entire arrangement looks like what? Reminds us of the process of composting, right? So this entire process is basically the image describes the modern landfill site where compressed waste is dumped in the pit. So all the waste products are dumped in this pit and it is covered with soil slurry, and it is kept for a long period of time, which releases methane gas, which is used for cooking purposes as well. And this waste over the time produces a great compost. Now, next question. After the pit is completely filled and sealed with soil slurry, what valuable product is produced and how is it used? So, what is this entire landfill site does? Why do we even need this? So, this is a 2 marks question. So, now we already answered in the previous, the landfill site is for the generation of compost and it also generates methane gas. So, after the pit is completely filled, it is sealed with soil slurry. As you can see, this process allows the waste to decompose, resulting in the formation of high quality compost. And this compost can be valuable resource for various purposes such as soil improvement in agriculture. So agriculture, crops yield depends a lot on the quality of the soil. It gives a lot of nutrition to the growing crops. So that is the reason why we require a good quality compost to be added to the agriculture to increase the yield. Now, what is present in the soil to decompose the waste? This is 1-mark question. So what is it that is making this process happen? How does this compost is produced? So microbes and decomposers like earthworm, termites, they are all already present in the soil, and other top layer decompose the waste product in the pit, right? And this is how the compost is formed. Now, so complete the flowchart. Can you see the flowchart here? The chemical energy in coal is converted to thermal energy, and from thermal energy it is converted to some other energy, and from there it is getting converted into kinetic energy in turbine, which again results into some other form of energy. So what would come in those blank spaces? So let's see. Thermal energy is used in thermal power plants to generate electrical energy, right? So this is why we require these fossil fuels like coals and natural gases. These are used in thermal power plant to generate electricity. So now we know if we are using chemical energy in coal, the last part would be electrical energy, because this is the entire process. That is the reason why we are using turbines in the first place, right? So now such power plants are called thermal power plants. In thermal power plants, the chemical energy in the coal is converted into electrical energy through several steps. So this is what we are going to see. So chemical energy in coal is converted into thermal energy. It is already given. This thermal energy is converted into kinetic energy in steam. Then this kinetic energy in steam is converted into kinetic energy in turbine, and finally this kinetic energy in turbine is converted into electrical energy, which is used by us for running different appliances. Differentiate between the various types of power generating stations based on the energy source used to rotate the turbine. So what we have to do here is enlist the types of power generating stations, and on the basis of what? The sources, the energy sources used to rotate the turbine. So we know that in power station different sources of energies are used to first rotate the turbine, and with the help of the turbine that energy source is converted into electrical energy so that we can utilize it for different purposes. Provide examples of these different power stations and the specific energy sources associated with them. So first we have to enlist them, and then we have to say that what is the differentiating factor and how it helps to generate the electrical energy sources which we using different electrical appliances. So let's see the solution here. So first of all, the first part is differentiate between various types of power generating station based on the energy source used to rotate the turbine. So the power generating station differ based on their energy sources. Examples include fossil fuel power plants, for example coal, natural gas. These are the fossil fuels which is used to rotate the turbine. Use combustion to produce steam, and this steam drives the turbine, right? Now next is hydroelectric power plants. That is, if you see hydro, that means what? It is using water as the energy source which runs the turbine. So hydroelectric power plants use falling water which is either made to fall artificially in dams or running water in rivers, and it is used to turn the turbines, and this is how hydroelectric power plants work. Next, we can say nuclear power plants uses nuclear reactions to generate steam for turbines. Again, this is generating steam only like fossil fuels, but here we are using nuclear reactions to generate steam, and this steam again runs the turbine. So this is our nuclear power plants. Then next is wind farms. In that, what happens? We see that lots of windmills are there with very tall wind farm fans, and that is rotated with the help of moving wind, and with the help of that we are using to rotate the turbines, and then those turbines generate electricity. So this is the wind energy. So wind farm use wind to turn wind turbines, right? Next is solar power plants. How can we forget solar power? That is the biggest source of energy for Earth. So if we can capture the solar energy and then we can use it for generating electricity, a lot of electricity can be generated and it's unlimited, right? So solar power plants uses sunlight to produce steam or drive photovoltaic cells. So these photovoltaic cells run on the sunlight instead of heat. So if we are producing steam, that means we are making the water heated, and then using the steam the turbines run. Or else what we can do is we can capture the sunlight and turn it into energy source in photovoltaic cells. That is a chemical form in which we first convert the light energy into chemical energy, and from that chemical energy we convert it into electrical energy. So I hope that is clear now. So explain all the steps in the diagram. Where have you seen this diagram? You must have very commonly seen this diagram in many of the asexual reproduction examples, where it is a hydra, and this you must have definitely seen in examples of budding. It is very common example when you want to explain budding. So now we can match 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So now we can say that this is a budding process and the organism here is hydra. So all we have to do is just explain the process and gain 3 marks easy, right? So let's try to solve this question, although you must have already guessed it. So let's see the solution here. So budding in hydra involves a small bud which is developed from its parent hydra through the repeated mitotic division of its cell. So here this is the parent hydra, and if you can see that budding involves a small bud formation. So this is the small bud formation which is developed from its parent hydra. So from the parent hydra, a small bud develops on its own body because of the mitotic division of its cell. Then what happens? What happens in the second picture? The small bud then receives its nutrition from the parent hydra and grows healthy. So if you can see, this bud is growing little bit bigger, and eventually it gets bigger and bigger, taking all the nutrition from the cell of parent hydra. Then what happens? Growth starts by developing small tentacles and the mouth. So then all the parts starts to differentiate. Then you can see the tentacle starts growing, mouth starts growing, and now when the mouth has grown, it can absorb nutrition from its environment itself. So at that point of time, we know that it doesn't have to remain attached to its parents. It can live on its own independently. So then eventually what happens? That it separates away from the parent cell and a new entity is formed. So this is the asexual reproduction by budding in hydra. How does asexual reproduction differ from sexual reproduction? So we have already studied a lot of differences. Let's see a few of them which can be answered for 1 mark. Asexual reproduction involves a single parent and produces offspring identical genetics. Okay, so here for asexual reproduction, what is the most key parts? That it involves a single parent. single parent and produces offspring with identical genetics, right? Because it has had mitotic divisions from the single parent and there has not been involvement of male and female gametes from different organisms of the same species, and that is the reason the offspring has identical genetics. Whereas in sexual reproduction, what happens? It involves two parents, a male and a female parent, and from that the male and female gamete fuses to form zygote, and that is the reason why the genetic makeup involves a bit from the male parent and a bit from female parent, right? So that is the biggest difference between sexual and asexual reproductions. So it produces genetically diverse offspring because the genetic makeup of male and female parent is different, and that is why it forms a combination of the two, and that is the reason the resultant genetic makeup of the offspring is pretty diverse. Give reason. The calyx and corolla of a flower are referred to as accessory whorls in the context of floral structure. What is calyx? What is corolla? I hope you know that very well. The corolla is the colorful portion of the flower and the calyx is the sepals. The sepals combine to form the calyx. And why do we call it as an accessory part of the whorls? Is that not essential? Of course it is, but to a certain extent. So let's see the solution. The calyx and corolla are referred to as accessory whorls because their primary function is to protect the essential reproductive part. So the most important parts which take part in the reproduction is not corolla or calyx. They are only there till the time zygote formation takes place, and once that happens, you remember that they dry and fall off. So their part is only limited to protect the essential reproductive parts, which are androecium and gynoecium, from external elements or damage. So to protect the androecium and gynoecium from external elements or damage, these corolla and calyx are present only till the time that zygote formation takes place, and that is the reason why we call it accessory whorls. Why is peer group influence stronger in adolescence? What do you think? What is the adolescent time? It is before the adulthood hits in, right? So during that time when people are teenagers, at that time peer group, what is peer group? The group that is surrounding them. The people they meet more often in school or college or in their neighborhood of their same age. They are their peer group. So during the adolescent period, the peer group influence is the strongest. Why is that so? Adolescents prefer the company of friends and often follow their habits, whether good or bad, over the advice of parents and teachers, because at that time they feel they want to be included in the society. They want to be included and respected for their habits and be a part of a bigger group. And that is the reason why they try to follow the habits of their peer groups as well, right? And they generally try to follow the groups or people of their age more than to follow the advice of their parents and teachers. They are more influenced by their peers as they seek social acceptance and identity during this phase. So whenever you are in a group of friends of similar age, you want to be included, you want to share the likes and dislikes of theirs, even if you don't understand if you really like it or if it is good for you or not. You don't take the advice of parents and teacher that seriously at that adolescent age, and you like to get yourself included in the society, in the social group. And that is the reason adolescent is a very delicate age where peer group influence is much more stronger. Let's look at this 1-mark question and try to answer this. What are some reasons why children in their early age experiment with substances like tobacco, alcohol, and drugs? So, what can be the reasons in their early age that they try to experiment with these things? Do they not understand the consequences of these things, or do they not try to explore what can be the health benefits or consequences of these products? Let's see the solution to it. So, children may try such substances due to peer group pressure. So, peer group is nothing but the people in their schools or colleges or their neighborhood of same age. They try to usually copy or be accepted in their group by doing such kind of things. So, it is because of the peer group pressure, or we can generally say peer pressure, a desire to mimic what they perceive as high standard of living or imitating the behavior of elders. So, even if they are in a family where their family member is doing a certain type of habit, or they are taking certain tobacco, alcohol or drugs kind of things, then they would try to mimic them, because they would feel that this is what grown-ups are supposed to do, and if they are doing it, it must be beneficial for their health. And that is the reason, because of those influence, they try to imitate or they try to experiment by using these kind of stuffs. However, this experimentation can lead to addiction. So, the biggest problem with tobacco, alcohol and drugs and things like that is addiction, and because of the addiction, it becomes very hard to quit those habits as well, and potentially harm the nervous system, muscles, heart and overall health. So, we know that no good can come out of the drug abuses or alcohol or tobacco abuses, but due to the peer group pressure or by mimicking the elders, they get into this habit becomes addiction, and then it starts to affect different parts of your body, and then eventually an overall health is damaged. This question is very important from the exam as well as the society point of view. This question is about our very own social media. So, let's look at the question. How does the misuse of fake accounts on platforms like Facebook lead to teasing or financial exploitation, particularly targeting girls? Now, we know that it is very easy to open an account on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, etc. But what are the consequences of opening such fake accounts? You are not able to trust people if this account is genuine or fake, and it can lead to financial exploitation, teasing or particularly targeting girls. So, how does that take place? Misuse of fake accounts can involve impersonation or spreading false information, which can lead to harassment, blackmail or manipulation of individuals, particularly girls, for various purposes, including financial exploitation. And that is the reason it is very difficult to identify genuine and fake account, and people generally fall into it. Rumors are spread because of it, and that is a very dangerous situation in the age of social media. What is the concept of a laughter club, and how does it help in stress management? Have you heard about laughter club? Have you seen one though? There are a lot of laughter clubs you might spot in the societies or different gardens where people gather and laugh out loud. How does that help in stress management? Do you think it would matter? Let's see the solution to this question, and we can also get 1 mark by just laughing. A laughter club is a group where people relieve mental stress by laughing loudly. So, they come together, stand in circle and laugh loudly. Laughter has been shown to have stress relieving benefits by releasing endorphins and promoting a positive mood. So, there is a scientific reason why laughing loudly helps relieving mental stress, because it releases endorphins, and that is responsible for promoting a positive mood. So that is how it helps in relieving stress. So next time if you're stressed out about exams, then try this. What are some positive coping strategies for stress management? This question can get you 1 mark and also help in coping stress during exams. So let's check out the solution. Positive coping strategies include establishing communication with friends and family. So the first thing is communication. With whom? Friends and family. The close ones always come to your rescue whenever there is something wrong. So family and friends are the closest people who can help you to cope up with stress and manage it. So communication with friends and family when you are going through any stressful period is very, very important. Noting down feelings. So noting, you have a journal, you can make a notebook or diary, and there you can note down the feelings. And fostering hobbies such as material collection. So hobbies such as material collection, like some people collect coins, some people collect souvenirs, some people collect magnets and few other things, right? So hobbies such as collection of material, photography, reading, cooking, sculpturing, drawing, rangoli, dancing, etc. These are some of the hobbies which brings you joy, keeps you entertained, engages your brain, stimulates your brain and relieves your stress. So having a hobby like that really helps in coping with stress. These activities help utilize free time, divert energy towards positive thinking, right? So the key here is to divert your energy into not going towards negative thoughts, stressful thoughts, and directing these thoughts into something positive, something creative, right? And neutralizing negative thoughts. So by thinking positive, doing positive things, creating something beautiful and enjoying your time, you can neutralize negative thoughts. I hope it helps.